Hi, it's me and Domino here, and I thought I'd kind of take a moment in order to talk about maybe the adoption process and how that works and how to find a dog and what you might need and all the little things that you need in order to get a little bundle of joy like this. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the video. So I did a little bit of research in order to try to kind of get a scope of maybe what the issue is, and there are approximately 6.3 million companion animals that enter the U.S. animal shelters nationwide every single year. And we're basically talking about the United States. This isn't even the world statistics. From the ASPCA, of those, approximately 3.1 million are dogs every single year. And each year, approximately 920,000 shelter animals are euthanized. 390,000 dogs are euthanized every single year. Now, this has come down. In 2011, there were approximately 2.6 million animals that were euthanized in that particular year. And I'll go ahead and include a link to this in the description below. Now, approximately 4.1 million shelter animals are adopted each and every year. So there's a silver lining there, 2 million dogs and 2.1 million cats. So that is some really kind of uplifting information, at least about it. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about what a rescue dog is. So a rescue dog is an animal that has been brought into a shelter or a rescue organization because it was a stray, because it was turned in, because it was surrendered, or because of some particular bad housing situation, the dogs were basically taken from a prior owner. Because of that, there are some pretty common misconceptions about shelter dogs, and I thought I'd try and cover a few of those. So the first one would be that shelter dogs are problematic. It's a common misconception. Many shelter dogs are well behaved, and they have been evaluated by the professionals with their experience in the shelters themselves. Now, behavioral issues can occur in any dog, regardless of its origin, or if it's a purebred, or whether it's a shelter or rescue dog. Now, another common misconception is that all shelter dogs are pretty much older dogs. And it is true that shelters have older dogs, and I have adopted senior dogs in the past. Almost all of them also have puppies and young adult dogs. The age of a shelter dog really depends on various factors, including the circumstances under which they were brought into the shelter. For an example of this, Domino was a stray, and Domino was brought in when he was approximately 3 months old, and I adopted him at 4 months old. Another one is that shelter dogs are hard to bond with. Many shelter dogs are eager for companionship and the love and the routine of a family. So with patience, understanding, and positive reinforcement, you can basically form a strong bond with a rescue dog or pretty much any dog. One thing to keep in mind, though, is, and you'll see it at most shelters, it was at mine, and maybe I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but there's that 3-3-3 rule. That would be 3 days for the dog to decompress, 3 weeks for the dog to kind of feel like there's a routine and they kind of know what's going on, and 3 months before they get their full confidence in that this is their home, and then you can really start seeing the dog's personality shine. So although the first 3 days can be a little bit rough, it definitely does get better. Now, another common misconception is that shelter dogs are more expensive, which I don't agree with at all. In many cases, adopting a shelter dog is much more affordable than purchasing a puppy from a breeder. I know when I got Domino, I went to the shelter, and normally dogs are an $85 adoption fee. And the adoption fees typically cover vaccinations, at least the first round, especially for puppies, spaying or neutering, and microchipping. And all that was true. However, that particular shelter was facing an overcrowding problem, and I actually got a discount on Domino for $55. So Domino is kind of a bargain dog, and I love him for it. Another one is that shelter dogs are not purebred. Some shelter dogs are purebred. You can actually get purebred dogs at a shelter. A lot of times they might have backyard breeders who have had their dogs taken away from them, and those wind up going into the shelter. Or there could be other reasons, adult dogs that have been surrendered that are purebred dogs. But many of the dogs are mixed breed or an unknown breed. Mixed breed dogs can be, or almost always are, just as healthy, intelligent, and loving as purebreds. Matter of fact, a lot of times these mixed breed dogs do not have the genetic issues or the neurological issues that purebred dogs can have. Now that we've talked a little bit about maybe the misconceptions of adopting a rescue dog, let's talk about some of the benefits. Now, it is a really rewarding and fulfilling experience. I think bringing any animal into your home is a rewarding, fulfilling experience. But I do feel that shelter dogs kind of bring a little bit extra into your life. And here are some of the benefits. The first one is you're saving a life and you're giving that particular dog a second chance. They were brought in under bad conditions, generally speaking, because otherwise the dog wouldn't be in the shelter or at a rescue organization. So you're giving them that second chance in order to have a really good life. Another is reducing euthanasia. By adopting a rescue, you are helping to reduce the number of dogs euthanized in shelters. Another one, and I can kind of attest to this personally, is generally speaking, it's going to be a one-of-a-kind dog. The breed mix, the conditions they grew up in, basically how they have interacted with the staff, where they have come from, and what you do with the dog, they are going to be one of a kind. They have unique personalities and they have unique stories that you basically aren't going to get with a purebred dog. Now, in a lot of cases, these dogs are also pre-trained. Some rescue dogs may already be trained, especially when you get an adult dog, to do the basic commands, the sits and the stays and the downs. However, a lot of times they are also pre-housebroken if they were surrendered as an older dog. Now, puppies are still going to be puppies and you still have to train a puppy. However, you will get some dogs that are already trained, and that can be checked when you go to try and adopt a dog. Another one, and I'm going to be careful how I say this, is that it is cost effective. Now, when I was looking for Domino, I was also looking at some purebred dogs because, once again, I want a running dog, and that's kind of what this channel is about. So I was looking into getting a running dog and a Labrador Retriever, and we're talking about $3,000 for a well-bred Labrador Retriever. Once again, I got Domino for $55, so he was definitely a bargain. However, what I will say is that don't think that dogs are not expensive or that initial purchase is where the money is. That's really not the case. Generally speaking, when you adopt a dog, a lot of the money goes into the food you purchase, as well as veterinary care, as well as training, and the things that go on throughout a dog's life. A dog is maybe not as expensive as a child. However, there are expenses that you do incur when you adopt a dog. They are well worth it. Another thing is, and I've already mentioned this a little bit, is there are included services when you adopt a dog. They do include the vaccinations, spaying, neutering, and microchipping. I know my particular shelter where I got Domino, if I didn't have my own vet, they would have done a follow-up vet visit 1 month after I adopted. That would cost me nothing and was included in the adoption fees. So they are cost effective in that way. And then another little thing that you can kind of think of is the emotional connection you get when you bond with a rescue dog. So going back to that 3-3-3 thing, those first 3 days, they're going to be decompressing. And when you finally see in their eyes that they recognize that they're in a safe place, that they're no longer in the shelter and they're not going to be going back, because the shelter can be a chaotic environment. So when they start to decompress and you start seeing them bond with you and you start seeing them look to you for their comfort, it can be such a rewarding experience. And then next thing you know, you wind up doing the same thing for them. You wind up seeking them out for comfort and seeking them out for your own self-confidence. It's kind of a beautiful relationship. And then it kind of gives you a decent sense of purpose in that knowing you saved life can give you that sense of purpose in order to give the dog the best life possible and gain satisfaction from doing so. Now, there are a couple other things that you also need to consider when you're thinking about adopting a dog, and that would be preparing your home and your lifestyle, as well as the home environment. So you need to think about space. If you live in a 500 square foot apartment, then you might not want to get an Australian Shepherd or a high energy dog. If you have a big backyard, then you might consider getting something that likes to run in the backyard or the ability to have multiple dogs. Knowing if there are pet-friendly areas around you. If you live in an apartment, there's nothing wrong with getting a dog. Just make sure that you have places to go, that you can go for a walk every single day. Maybe there's a dog park down the street. There are certainly things that you need to consider when you adopt a dog. So when you're thinking of the size of the dog and what kind of lifestyle you want to have with a dog, what you want to do with a dog, these are all things that you need to consider before you adopt the dog. Another one, this goes more to the lifestyle side of it, is that would be you need to evaluate what your daily routine is and what your commitment level is. So if you want to get a puppy, and this is pretty much any puppy, and we'll go towards certain breeds as well, but if you specifically want to get a puppy, puppies take time, and they just do. So if your daily routine is that you get up and you go to work, and you work for your 8 hours or 9 hours or even longer, and then, you have your commute time in between there, and there's nobody there to go take care of the dog during those 9-10 hours that you're gone for the day, a puppy might not be for you. There are dogs, especially adult dogs out there, and certain breeds and certain temperaments that can work with that particular kind of lifestyle. However, you need to evaluate your daily routine before you get the puppy, and it'll save you a lot of frustration and really help the dog ease into your life. Another thing that you might want to consider when you're evaluating your lifestyle is researching breeds and mixes. Now, you're going to go into a particular shelter and you might be like me, and I actually had a dog picked out that I wanted to get. And I got to the shelter and Domino just stole my heart, and I didn't wind up getting the one I went down with. However, I wanted an active dog. So I wanted a retriever of some sort or a German Shepherd or something along those lines that I knew was going to be an active dog. So I researched the breeds that would actually fit that, and I looked for mixes that would actually fit into that particular lifestyle. If you want a dog that is going to be more of a lap dog or a dog that's going to be more of a couch potato, there are breeds that are geared towards that. And although they might be mixes, you can definitely kind of get an idea of what kind of dog you might want to pick up. And once again, you might be able to save yourself and the dog a bunch of frustration later. And then I guess the last thing I'd like to talk about is basically where to find these dogs. Now, you can go ahead and go to your local shelter and just kind of show up, look up their websites. I know there were two. Actually, the shelter that I got Domino from wasn't the city shelter. I went to the county shelter, which I didn't know existed until I looked online. However, I will say this, a good place to go look for shelters or go look for dogs in rescue organizations. There are two big ones in the United States, and I'm sure there's other ones around the world, but petfinder.com and adoptapet.com. A lot of shelters will list their dogs on those websites, so you can kind of scroll through, find various rescue organizations, find basically your local shelters there, and see what dogs are available on those particular websites in a consistent format. That's really helpful when you're deciding where you want to go to try and pick up a dog. Now, I hope this information was helpful. I know that when I was looking to adopt Domino, I spent a lot of time kind of looking these things up and trying to figure out how I wanted to do it. But I hope I was able to give you a little head start on that. And if you did, feel free to like, subscribe, and we'll be doing more information, and you can learn more about Domino and how Domino grows up and how he becomes a good running dog. But with that being said, thank you very much for watching.